We are on, Maharaj.
Okay. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We have been looking at chapter 4, Quattro, right?
Yes.
Transcendental knowledge. And we finished with verse 15. And we're moving into a new theme, and it's called the workings of karma. All right? The workings of karma. And so we're going to go from 16 to 24. Verses 16 to 24. We're going to talk about karma. Now, it came up before, what is karma? And the way it was translated is like this. I'll repeat it. We went through it before. Action pertaining to the development of a new body. That is karma. So let's reflect on that for a minute. Whatever you do now, action-wise, will determine what kind of body, what kind of life you're going to have in the future. So what you do now determines the future. What you do now is the blueprint for your next body. Everyone okay with that?
Maharaj, I have a question.
Wait.
Yep.
I'm going to play a devil's advocate here.
Okay, I can see the
say
point
that-
sticking out. I see a tail. I see a pitchfork. Go ahead.
How do you prove to the non-believer that statement?
Well, I would say most people believe that whatever you sow, so you reap. Okay? Meaning, just to put it in simple terms, if you do something negative, negativity will come back to you. It will come back to haunt you. It'll spring back to you right in your face. If you do something positive, many positive responses will come to you. I think that, like you're talking about the atheists and so on, I think most people believe in that as a universal reality. Am I correct about that?
You are, but these days when you see somebody doing wrong all the time, you don't see bad things happening to them. You rather see good things happening to them. And
No, I disagree. If you stick around long enough, you'll see everything will go bad. People run on some good karma for a while, you know, for some good things they've done. But if you, in time, you'll see reactions will come. They'll come in many shapes and forms. Bad reputation, disease, you know, a dislike from the public. So many things will come to disturb you. So anyways, we can talk a little bit more about that. I want to just move along with our lessons, and then, you know, let's dwell on what your concerns are there. I just want to make sure we cover some territory, okay? So the workings of karma with text 16, okay? 16. I will read this one. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. Okay. So we have been talking about in Karma Yoga, chapter 3, that good action, that is following the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, will bring about some results, but temporary results. And if you engage in what we call akarma, action that brings no negative reaction, that is acting in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so the point is, people get confused. They get confused about this topic, and that's why you bring up your question, right? About action and inaction. So when we say karma, it refers to action. When we say akarma, it means inaction, meaning no reaction. And I'm going to give you a third word, okay? And that is called vikarma. Vikarma means when you are performing actions that are not backed up by any kind of Vedic standards, okay? So that is like what most people do. Most people are involved in being very active, but they don't know why they do it. They just have desires. They're not compelled to move by any ultimate good reaction. They are bent on fulfilling their desires, and that's all. There's no regulation in their life. There's no standards, from the Vedic perspective. Although I'll give credit, a lot of people do believe, let's be nice, let's be polite, let's be proper, and then there will be some good return. So deep down inside, I think the bulk of the population believes in that. But in terms of Vedic standards, there's not much there. So vikarma means that you act according to the dictates of your senses and your wild mind. In the Bhagavatam, we have a verse, Nunam karma, vikarma. I'm just giving you the last word, vikarma. Nunam paramata kuruti vikarma. So that means when you act with no guidance whatsoever. Okay, so Krishna then agrees to say, I'll teach you, I'll explain to you what these things are, in this verse 16. And once you know about action and inaction, it puts you in a position of liberation and fortune. Okay, let's look at 17. Somebody could read that one. "17.
The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is.
Okay, so let's say this. In answer to Anantashesha's question, some people are not sure about this whole karma thing. And the reason is because the actions and reactions are a little bit hard to comprehend because of their intricacies. It's complex. It's not, it doesn't come straight. Hate to use the term black and white. It's not plain and simple oftentimes. So therefore there's some confusion in this area. Very hard to understand how a person who's good can be stricken by COVID, for instance, suddenly, like overnight. People will ask the question, but that person was so good. He was always so nice to everybody, and he was kind-hearted and everything. People feel that if you're stricken with some disease, it's bad. It's not always bad necessarily. The point is strong people, like let's say good people, if I can use that term, good people are the kind of people that can cope with difficulties and challenges. They can manage it. Whereas those persons who are a little bit weak in accepting material nature, they'll have a little more difficult time to try to understand and sort these things out. So everything's very complex. Our bodies, if we were to take a knife and cut open our body and do some kind of surgery, we see there's a complex system, with heating and cooling and nervous system, air movement going on, and so on. Everything's very complicated. You take a blade of grass, and if we were to put it under a microscope, we would see that there's so much intricacy just in a blade of grass. What to speak of the nature of the world. Okay, let's go back to, does everybody understand these terms? Karma, akarma, and vikarma. Karma means when you're active and you're doing something with some kind of motive. You're serving some devatas, demigods, and you're trying to get some return. You flatter them.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Karma and vikarma guarantees you a new body, right? That's correct, from what I understand.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And akarma is quite the opposite. Akarma means when you're performing with a pure motive. When you're purely motivated, and then practically you're liberated. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
So karma means action, which is, somewhat, let's say, sanctioned. Akarma means when you're active and you produce no reaction. And vikarma refers to forbidden action. Okay, so we should try to avoid forbidden action, and also, as best as we can, karma, regular karma. But it's better to be in that post than to be in the vikarma platform. Everybody understand that? And it's best to engage in pure devotional service. Do what the soul wants and do what Krishna wants. All right? So let's look at 18. Would somebody, Gopal, can you read this one for us?
One who sees an action in action, and action in inaction, is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities.
Okay. So what we'd like to say about that, just to paraphrase it, you're a wise person when you see inaction, and action in action. Such a person is free, although engaged in all kinds of activities. He or she is on the spiritual path. So for them, they see there's no line. It's all kind of obliterated. They're just engaged in pure devotional service. They're not caring about a good reaction or bad reaction. So they have actual vision. Their vision is clear. I'm just going to do what I need to do for my Lord. And in the end, such a person gets rewarded. Actually, if you get a reaction by having a new body, that is unfavorable in many ways. Unless if you come back into this world again and you have a body which you utilize 100% in Krishna's service, or at least that you use in a karmic way, meaning through the practice of karma yoga. And karma yoga means action which brings you, links you up with Krishna. The key word is karma yoga. Do karma yoga, not just karma. If you stand to keep it by itself, it means you are following some Vedic standards, but you will achieve temporary results, such as, get a nice, good-looking body, or you're intelligent in your next life, or you're physically strong. People see these as good reactionary bodies. But if you don't utilize this gifted body and in bhakti, then you'll likely take birth again, and you have to burn off some karma a bit more. You'll be just prolonging your stay here. Okay, so verse 18 is about thinking wisely, and that is do everything for Krishna, do everything in a surrendered mode. Be wise, don't be foolish. Like, I'll give you an example. We have heard about one devotee who didn't quite get the instructions right. He heard that you should take a cold shower when you get up in the morning, or let's say a cool shower. And he was also told to chant 16 rounds every day. So what this poor devotee did in his home, he put these two instructions together, and he was staying in the cold shower for 2 hours, chanting his 16 rounds. So he was surrendering, but not with full intelligence, So that's why you need like a personal guide there to be with you. Can you imagine somebody staying every day under a cold shower, chanting your 16 rounds? Well, that person got very sick eventually, and it stands to reason that we must surrender with intelligence and manage ourselves well. Do not take to renunciation in an immature way, thinking you're transcendental, or you will be transcendental after 1 week. You have to use your brains. Krishna has given, of course, Krishna's given us intelligence. Chapter 10, text 10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantate. It's one of the key verses from Bhagavad Gita. There's 4 verses that are really important for us in the Gita. Chapter 10, that's where we find them. And Krishna says, I'll give you intelligence, how you can apply Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada had asked one of his devotees, now what do you think? How will Krishna consciousness survive after I'm gone? And the devotee was saying, Prabhupada, if we just stay fixed in our sadhana and we keep chanting and so on like that. Prabhupada said, no, that's not the answer I'm looking for. I'm talking about managing things well and using your intelligence. Okay? So why are we human beings anyways? What makes us different? What draws us apart from all other forms of life? The fact that we have some common sense, some intelligence, okay? And Prabhupada was so good for using common sense. So many times he would say, be practical. It's true. Even sometimes with medicine. If you have some medicine that's local, comes from across the counter from the pharmacy, And if that's the only thing you have, better to take that than gamble with pulling all your herbs together from the backyard. He would be very practical. Okay, so is everybody okay with that line, which can be a little bit confusing? Verse 18, to just have proper vision, see things from the perspective of Shastra. The Sanskrit term is Shastra Chakshu, see with the eye of Scripture, right? The eye of Scripture. See through the eyes of wisdom. Let's go to 19. Can somebody else read that? Rain, did you have a chance yet? Or?
Yes, I just read.
Okay, so would someone else like to go ahead?
Right.
Okay, go.
One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Right. So basically what we're saying here is that be wise. And be wise means act. That means work. Use your karma, but without selfish motive. Okay? As soon as there's selfish motive involved in our actions, we will get some fruit. We will get some harvest, but it may not bring the best harvest. So approach everything with purity. Be clean in our directions. Okay, so that's very simple right there. And that therefore we call that term akarma, that kind of action, akarma. It's not big karma and it's not regular karma. It is akarma, where there will be no reactions in the long run. So do everything with a pure heart. Just like Krishna says in the Gita chapter 9, yat karushi, yat ashnasi, yat jahushi dadasiyat. So Krishna there is saying that simply whatever you do it for me. Do everything in the surrendered mode, not with selfish interest. Okay? And most of us are trained to be selfish, isn't it? Most of us are trained to think for ourselves. We are compelled by greed, by lust, by anger. Okay, so now let us go to 20. Someone else can read that?
One is understood to be in full knowledge. Is this 20? Yeah. Whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He's said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge.
Yes, thank you, Sankalpa. And you can see that this verse is pretty much coupled up with the previous one. They're saying the same thing. Do not be attached to your activities, to the results of your activities. Renouncing all attachment, being content and self-contained, self-satisfied. You can keep yourself, though you are busy in many activities, that selfish motive should not be driving you. Okay. So I find it's best to think more for others than for yourself. If you can get into that practice, great. And if you can actually think about doing everything for Krishna, wonderful. That's that kind of platform of others come first. And because I'm part of the whole community, therefore I am in that number, I'm included. So let's not be exclusivistic in our approach, but rather let's be more inclusive in all that we need to do. Okay. When I meet people, I always give them a mantra card, and I tell them, I give them the translation. Here it is, and it says, "Oh, awesome Creator." This is my translation of the Maha Mantra. "Oh, awesome Creator, allow me to be a blissful service to you and the world." So if we actually service the world and try to sanctify the world, I am part of that world, so I benefit from it also. So this is bhakti. Bhakti means, let me do what pleases Krishna, and let me do what pleases all the spirit souls in this world. You know, let's be motivated by this kind of compassion, you know, spiritual compassion. Okay, anybody with any questions or comments up to this point then? Then let's go to 21. Do we have somebody else? Mandala, you're there?
Yes, Maharaj.
You want to do 21 for us?
Sure, I'd love to. Sorry, I don't have my Gita on me. I don't know if we're able to pull it up on the screen. There we go. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence, perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, so again, I think some key words here. There's no selfish motive. And so he's been able to harness, or when I say he or she, he can harness his mind and intelligence and direct it towards Krishna's interest. Then such a person gets free from reaction. You can put him in the akarmic category. Okay, same theme, you know, and something can be said about ownership. We're all very possessive. We're North Americans, right? What are North Americans known for being? We own a lot, we throw away a lot, you know. And whatever we own, we value that so much, and we feel so insecure. We can't do away with little. And when we find something doesn't has lost its luster, then we throw it away, hoping someone else will catch on and utilize the material. But we're very good hoarders. We're pack rats. We're very bad people. We're bad. We're rats, and we're also part of the rat race. You know, we're racist and we're rat racist too. We're part of the rat race. So, but on the other side, on the other hand, I mean, the statistics have shown that North American people are often quite generous for so again, moving with no motive, and then there will be no sinful reaction. So that's what everybody likes to be. Nobody wants COVID. Nobody wants any virus. We don't want to catch anything that is going to weaken us in some sense. We want to be able to have as much of a Bhagawan feature as possible. We want to have as much strength, as much beauty as possible, as much intelligence, so that we can serve others. And when we lack some of these assets, let's call them assets, then we're in a position where people will want to, will demand help from others. And of course, that time will come. We all get a little older, we can see. We'll demand help from others. And And we should take that offer of help. We shouldn't refuse it, not to be too detached. It's nice to be loved when you need that attention. And I think everybody knows what that means. We've all been sick, and there's nothing worse than being sick in your own apartment where and it's just nice to have people at least call you once in a while, check on you once. How are you doing? I brought you some food. Here's a few samosas, whatever. Yeah, so love has to be always demonstrated to the Lord and to his world. Okay, so let's look at, that was 21 we did, yeah. So let's go for 22 then.
Arjuna,
Okay.
Sure. He who is satisfied with gain, which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality, and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions.
Good, thank you so much. And you see, like, one reason why I wanted to go on these marathon walks is that I wanted to have the full-on sannyas experience. And that is, just accept whatever weather comes. If it's sunny, if it's bright, or if it's dark and cold, or rainy or snowy, or mosquito-y, the whole idea is kind of learn to take it all in and learn detachment. So it's always a great exercise for that. It allows you to experience dualities and to not get too carried away, to accept what comes of its own accord. I'm hoping that for all of us who are together here, we can always remember that. We should, let's say, accept what comes of its own accord, and not try to evade it, not try to block it, but go for some acceptance. That is, we call that vairagya, it's detachment, okay? Because there's sometimes things there's nothing you can do about it. So you just have to go for acceptance instead of complaining all the time. There's nothing worse than it would be having complainers all around. Would you agree? There's nothing worse than having people who are always complaining.
Yes, Mars. I remember you saying one time to me, there's two ways to be in the world. You can either be beat up or upbeat.
That's right.
It always
That's
sticks
right.
with me.
Yeah. Yeah. So free from dualities, we can get that idea from chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, where winter and summer seasons come, happiness and distress come of their own accord. One should learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. And then free from envy. These are all just good traits to adapt to. We just simply need to be reminded of them all over and over again. It is not possible to establish bhakti if we are, let's say, dragged by these negative elements, such as envy and so on, and being so attached to dualities, and try to accept what comes. Acceptance is an important thing. So such a person merges into transcendence. So that's let's see, in number 23. Okay, yes, 23. Let's go for that one then. How about I'll read this one. The work of a person who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. And that's a segue that leads us into 24, which is one of my favorite verses. And if you look at 24, it'll help you to understand about the magic of prasadam. So somebody else could read this one?
Nandini Kishori.
Yes, Dandavat Maharaj and devotees. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities. in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of nature.
Okay. So one who is fully immersed in this higher consciousness or Krishna consciousness enters into Brahman, is a spiritual person. Okay. So anything that that person does, like if you take an object, let's just take something very foundational, like an apple, and you offer that to Brahman, the supreme Brahman, which is Krishna. You are spiritual, Krishna is spiritual, and the object of sacrifice, it also becomes spiritual because of the intent behind the offering, right? It's done with love. So everything becomes transformed. Perhaps devotees are very kind in this regard. They want everyone to have prasadam because they believe that because it's not ordinary food. It is spiritualized, or let's use the term Krishnaized. So I've heard of Sankirtan devotees traveling through different towns, and then they go into a health food store. And because it's all sattvic food, they'll do the prayers for offering, making it all prasadam. They offer the whole store to Krishna by chanting the proper mantras, and then they leave saying, the whole store is now prasadam. Anybody who buys any object here will now get blessed. So I've been in some Hindu temples where before they honor their prasadam, which is offered to their deities, and they'll sometimes recite this verse, Brahmarpanam Brahmabhir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaive Tina Gantavyam Brahma Karma Sabadina. So what's the word that you hear most in this verse?
Brahma.
Yeah, Brahma referring to spiritual nature. I'm not talking about Brahma, the personality who heads up our sampradaya or was secondary creator of the universe. I'm actually talking about that which is spiritual. So the point is the giver, which is the individual, each and every one of us, the offering, the apple, and the absolute, who is receiving our object. All three are spiritual. They become spiritualized, or let's say Krishna's always spiritualized. But when you're offering something with the intent of love, it also becomes Brahman. It becomes spiritual. So in this way, our bodies, when we use them in Krishna's service, they also become spiritualized. Our bodies become Krishnaized. Is that okay? So we're talking about transformation. We're talking about a transformation from a physical, material thing to a spiritual thing. All right. Any questions on that? We took it to text 24 under this heading, the workings of karma. All right. So now, since we're going to go into another theme, we've got 15 minutes left. Do we have any questions right now? No? Okay. Then we'll go ahead.
I have a question.
Okay.
What about, you said somebody sometime, or you mentioned one certain devotee who was offering the whole store,
Yeah.
all the food in the store. So how's that possible? Also, I think don't you have to buy the food first? It's not your food, right? You buy it, then you prepare it, and then you offer it.
Well, a lot of the things that come off the shelf in a health food store, they might be already prepared, right? Some of them are pills, some of them are capsules, so on like that, and it's all, the ingredients are fairly sattvic. Well, you know, in regards to prasadam, it's all in gradations, you know. The best form of prasadam is to present something before the deity of Krishna and through the avenue of the Guru, with the blessings of Guru, right? So that's one form of prasadam. Let's say you're traveling somewhere from the Smoky Mountains to the Rocky Mountains, and there is no there's no temple nearby. There's no Radha Krishna temple. You're out in the boonies. What do? Well, you take whatever ingredients you have, whether it's veggies or fruits, and you offer it to your guru, you know, in your mind. He's not there, or to a picture. So that's another form of prasadam. There's another form of prasadam where you don't even necessarily need to go to the deity, but you offer to some very qualified Brahmins. And it's understood that their tongues, their mouths, which are used 10% in Krishna service, it is good as offering to God. So that's also a form of prasadam. So you see, there's different approaches to this, and whether cooking or not, like you're out in the wilderness and you can only eat raw food. You don't have a cooking pan, a frying pan, or anything. You don't have ghee or anything. But what you're going to survive on is what nature provides, and just eat some of those green things. Beware, just know what you're eating. So it's really, prasadam comes about, the transformation of prasadam comes about when there's the proper attitude, when there is something that is of quality being presented to the Supreme Spirit, to Krishna, and done with love and kindness, then Krishna will accept it. Bhadrang pushpam phalam toyam. Let's take that key verse from chapter 9, chapter 9, 9, right? No, chapter 9, text 26. Patrang pushpam phalam toyam. Yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti uparitam ashnami prayatat manaha. Okay, so there we are encouraged to offer whatever we have, the leaf, flower, fruit, or water, with devotion, key ingredient. And Krishna says, I will accept it. So this is the main factor. Sometimes we don't even have a picture of Krishna or Guru, so then, you know, you offer in the mind. And that is also a form of prasadam because of your intent. It's the intent that counts.
Thank you. That clarified a lot.
Yeah, I remember Prabhupada talking about, he was on the train in India with some of his disciples, and they were on that train for many hours. So it was decided then to honor prasadam, to make an offering, as we say, right? So one of the Matajis, I'm not sure which one, she made a real elaborate arrangement in the train for an altar. And Prabhupada was looking at this, and he said, this is not necessary, you know? Like he was more or less saying, it's not so much about the externals, it's about your offering with love and devotion. So that means that what we offer to Krishna should be clean, you know, it should be sattvic, you know, don't use onions and so on like that, you know. And of course, you know, I was in a situation not long ago where I had to eat some, and there were some onions in the salad, and I just put the onions to the side and I offered it to Prabhupada, and I don't feel bad about it. I had no choice. It was do or die. You know? So I just keep in mind that Prabhupada was very practical about these things, and so that's what I did. So you can report to the GBC about my great sin. And, and then I'll be, let's say, go through some kind of, what do you call it? Maybe I'll be fired. All right, so we have to be very practical, right?
Let's finish this fast before you get fired, Maharaj.
Okay. Yeah, so the thing is that, again, let's be practical and let's think about what, what real prasadam is. And I mean, some devotees cook, they overcook, they undercook, or they cook, or they put too much oil, too many chilies in there. And you wonder, is this really prasadam? How is Krishna? Does he really accept it? But maybe from the cook's point of view, it was done with good intent. And therefore, you have to accept it. You may not eat so much of it, but at least you have to accept that it is some form of prasadam, right?
Yeah. Maharaj, what about Sri Vishnu, Sri Vishnu, Sri Vishnu?
What about Sri Vishnu?
Yeah, when I joined in Germany, so they said when you have liquids, fluids like juice or milk or so, you only say
it's true that once Prabhupada says different things. Harisari in his Transcendental Diary was also mentioning something about how when it comes to fruits or raw things, they don't necessarily need to be offered. But we have been, and that's coming from Prabhupada, but we are trained in such a way that whatever we get, we want to use it as an offering. So that is preferred. That is desirable. And to say Sri Vishnu, okay, well, okay, I'm sure Vishnu is very happy with your saying it 3 times. But why not include Guru? Why not include Prabhupada? Why not include Krishna and, who's dear to the cows and the Brahmins, Why not use our standard mantras? We're all put in situations where we can't have an elaborate offering. Sorry. You might be at a formal, like I've been at formals with my devotional clothes on. And like where vegetarianism is offered. And I'll just do in my mind a very quick offering mentally, and I take it this is prasadam. And but I will do a little bit more than say Shri Vishnu. Yeah. So I think it can go both ways, but why not include Prabhupada, for instance, and why not Krishna? Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
You can't always put a heart on such things, but definitely if you're a householder, you've got your own facilities, you've got fire, you've got ghee, feel like there's no excuse, We should formalize it nicely. Okay, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now we are on the topic of sacrifice offerings. And so from 25 to 33, we'd like to move on the theme of sacrifice. But let's see how much time we have left. We have about 7 minutes left. We can stop it right here if you like, because this was good information all about karma and akarma and vikarma. If there are any other questions now, we can deal with it now. And then we can start fresh with our new topic, which is various forms of sacrifice.
All right, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, if you are there, now is the time to ask questions. So Maharaj, I have a question.
Okay.
I was told, or in a lecture, I heard that when we are sharing our Krishna consciousness or wanting to share our Krishna consciousness with somebody, then what we are not supposed to do is we have to give a whole, everything we know, instead of just letting them know only about vegetarianism or something like that. It's not a piece of a pie, but whole pie is what Prabhupada told us to give, and therefore we cannot necessarily talk to anyone only about vegetarianism, is what I was told. So if we think someone it can only come up to the level of being a vegetarian, is it wrong to encourage them to be in that?
There's nothing wrong with that, because most people are not ready to deal with cold turkey, as the saying goes. They're not ready to do full-on devotion and surrender. Therefore, you take them, hold their hand, and have them walk along in baby steps. And if vegetarianism is the way to go, great. You tell them all the reasons why it's positive, and then once they're ready for more, you tell them more. I think everyone has to approach the public in a very, let's say, intelligent manner. If we do want to attract intelligent people to our society, we should do it with great care and love, and even if you have to use a glove. So this simply means that, bring people on. Shanai Shanai, Sanskrit word, means slowly, gradually bring people to the platform. So to bring somebody to a level of Moda goodness is a great achievement in Kali Yuga. And then from there, you want to have them take to the next step. That is to be very carefully handled. Like I remember we were conducting these, what's called Evening of Bhakti in the Toronto Temple. And we had that real nice facility with, ceilings 24 feet up and columns and everything. And people just loved the atmosphere. And then the people who are running that Govinda's restaurant, because that's where it was held, Saturdays was free, or Saturday afternoon. Then they decided we have to have our restaurant open Saturday night. So then us devotees were thinking, well, I guess we have to go to the temple then. And maybe we have to do it, conduct our affairs with mantra meditation in such a way that the doors should be closed, or a time when the doors are not open, because people won't understand Krishna, the Murti. So then we kind of prepared everybody, those 50 or 60 or so people. We psychologically prepared them for what they were about to experience, apart from chanting, that they were going to have some incredible visualization. And so the doors were open. We were finishing, like half hour left of our chanting. Doors were open for a half hour. And then suddenly everyone seemed to buy into it. They liked it. They loved it. They understood, oh, now I have something for the eyes. You gave me something for the ears and for my mouth to use. Now you've given me something to see of a divine nature. So it all depends on how you present yourself. And I think that if people really build up trust and confidence in you, you can tell them almost anything. So I don't think we have to be too shy, but let people go step by step, okay? Like some of us have a real broad gait, or like we have a wide stride, meaning that, when you go up a stairwell, you can do every other step. Isn't it true? We do that especially when we're young. But when you get a little older, you have to take one step at a time. So I think that you'll get to the top, but do not expect people to do some Hanuman leap, to do a big stride. So give people a chance. And if we want to attract intelligent people, I do believe that's the way to go. To go incrementally, incremental, and not rush everything too fast for people.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, yes, Maharaj. Lalita Gopi, you have some comments. She had written some comments on the chat, but if she wants to read it out, that's fine. You want to do it?
Lalita Gopi, please, do you want to read it out for us, please?
Sure, I just said, let me go to the chat and see what I said. I just said, in connection with what you were saying about, I remember when you were telling that story about that devotee chanting in the cold shower with their japa beads. I was saying I remembered somebody actually, a senior devotee told me that they'd met someone who was chanting, thought that a whole round was like once across and once back. And they were chanting the singing every day in the morning when they were doing their japa. And so it would take them basically all day to get 16 rounds done, but they were actually chanting 32 slowly. And just how, they were getting discouraged because they're like, why is it taking me so long? You guys are so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another connection that was just a comment. You were saying it's like some people have trouble going cold turkey. I said cold turkey, or I guess you could say no turkey. And also I was you kind of like, it's nice to know, because I kind of was doing the same thing when offering, if I'm like in a big rush, if I got some service and I haven't eaten anything in that day and I'm like, I've got to offer it to Krishna. I do kind of the same thing where I like chant the Prabhupada and Guru Pranam first, and then I chant Hare Krishna. That's like my short version. It's nice to know there's some basis for it.
Sure.
That it's
because if you
approved, I
take just a
guess.
few, like Sri Vishnu, Sri Vishnu, Sri Vishnu, it's nice. But if you take that little extra time and care and consideration with acknowledgement of those persons who are helping you in your spiritual life, it just, it just has much more impact on your devotional life. So I would say include some of those other people, and then there's a greater guarantee for, purification to take place.
And I have different degrees, depending on how much of a rush. Like if I've got like 10 minutes between me and getting down to do evening backup, that's like, I would do that. And other times I'd say each one once, like each one of the mantras, like, of the normal offering once, or I would say the whole thing. It just depends,
Sure.
But
Well,
I try to do as much as I can, just because of the exchange of devotion. It's like
well, that's
trying
good. I
to
mean, I would
put
say
effort.
devotees are very lucky to be living in a temple where it's all there handed down to you. The prasadam is prasadam on the highest level. Or if you have a home where you have home deities, those kind of persons are, in a good spot.
Well, sometimes when you're living in a temple, the other people living on the property make it to the prasadam before you do. And
That's
that
a whole
can
other
pose a
world.
problem.
That's a whole other world. That's a management issue. So thank you for the questions, everyone. So we're good to go for next week again?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. So
I hope that what we talked about was relevant today.
yes. Definitely.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're on the right track with everybody.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you for taking your time, Maharaj.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna. And thank you for the devotees from Argentina and other parts.
Well, yes. Agni Puran Das from Argentina is here. Vijay Krishna Das from Portugal is here.
Wow. Nice.
It's truly international.
Yeah. Yes. It's getting like that. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank
See you
you.
next week.
So
then.
much.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.